Hey y'all, welcome back. I hope you're doing great today and ready to learn some very cool AWS stuff. I have a cat gently snoring in the background here, so I feel very calm. We're talking today about AWS's concept of IAM roles and how they can be assumed using the STS service. My name is Kyler Middleton, and I'm a Cloud IAM Advocate here at IAM Pulse, which means I'm doing my best to educate practitioners and elevate IAM knowledge everywhere I can. Thank you so much for listening. Now, let's help each other. Let's do a quick overview on what the concepts of STS mean before we dig into why we'd want to assume an IAM role and how powerful that can be. An IAM role is a bucket for permissions and can be assigned to a human or machine principal. These permissions are represented as a number of policies that can be attached to the role. IAM roles have what's called a trust policy that controls what services like ECS or EC2 are permitted to assume them, and conditions can lock that down even further. Assuming a role means swapping my existing role and permissions for the target IAM role's permissions. We'll talk about some reasons why we might do that in a minute. IAM policies are a global resource in an AWS account. There are some that are provided by AWS called managed policies, which are an excellent starting point, but are generally pretty broad in terms of what they grant. To level up your skills in IAM, you should be building your own IAM policies. STS, or the Secure Token Service, is the AWS IAM service that issues tokens used for authentication and also permits assuming another role when it's configured for it. A great first question to ask is why? Why would we assume another role? If an IAM role needed a permission, couldn't we just assign it to it directly? I mean, that is sometimes true, but there are a few situations where assuming is really useful or just downright required. One of the first ones that pops up is cross-account permissions. Most orgs that use AWS don't have just a single account. They have lots of accounts managed in at least one organization. The permissions boundary in AWS are pretty firm when it comes to cross-account actions, especially when you compare to something like Azure. So we'll need to explicitly assign permissions for cross-account actions. Imagine this. We have account A, where our builder role lives. It runs our CI/CD job, so it needs a lot of access. We wanted to update services in account B and maybe C and D and E as well. You probably have a lot of AWS accounts if you're an enterprise. We have two options. Option one, update every service we want the builder role to update in account B, which might take a while. There are a lot of AWS services. And as new services come online, AWS releases them all the time, we'll need to find them and update their permissions too. And that sounds like a lot of work and a lot of ongoing work. Option two, we create a role in account B that has permissions to do what we need. Since the role is local to account B, most services will permit it to update them without any changes to those services. Now, updating one role in account B to have the right permissions sounds way easier. A lot more time for naps and mimosas. Another really useful use case is just-in-time access. Say we have an EC2 instance that needs to have a lot of access for some jobs it runs overnight. We could absolutely grant that EC2 instance the permissions directly, but then it would have those broad rights all the time. What if someone accidentally runs a job that used those permissions, or that machine is compromised? A better method is to assign the EC2 instance no rights at all, and tell it to assume a higher permission set using STS only when it needs it, like right before it runs the job. And then when the job is done, it can release those broad permissions. That means those scary broad access rights are only live when they're required and no other time, which sounds way safer to me. I have lots more to share, but I want to keep these videos short. Next up, we'll cover how to use STS to assume a role and what safeguards we can put in place to make sure it's not abused. Till next time.